again every Wednesday. Remember, 10 o'clock. So go ahead and share. We want to welcome everyone, but first of all, let's welcome our co-host, Mr. Christian Cano.
The most disputatious, the house of ill disputes.
Casa Cano. Good morning, Mr. Cano.
I thought maybe you forgot my name there for a while, but
I don't know. I didn't know what to say.
She's still thinking about that grandbaby.
Yeah.
That's all she thinks about.
Exactly.
That's grandbaby crazy. If you look on her Facebook,
Yeah.
and especially her stories, it's nothing but grandbaby.
And we're expecting the grandbaby to be delivered here by UPS at any moment.
Any minute. Not unless it gets dropped off some other box.
Oh no, okay. Maybe we should have our Secret Service contingent walk around the neighborhood and look for the missing grandchild.
I actually thought we were going to see her today.
Yes,
So-
actually, she's telling me, she's. I'm like, hurry up,
She's
we're about to
over.
start.
Well, welcome to Coffee and Pan Dulce. I'm Christian Cano. Let's turn off the Russians and technology. Alexa, stop.
Oh crap!
Welcome to Coffee and Pan Dulce. Today is December the 11th. I want to welcome everyone to our 52nd consecutive show. We've been doing this
Incredible.
for 1 year.
Wow.
It is, so at the end of the show, we're going to talk about our 1 year anniversary, and we have a special guest that's on today. Today's December the 11th. It is actually our last show of the year. We're going to do the Stony Rushing repeat next week, and then on Christmas we'll do either the Festivus or the Chancla show or whatever.
I like the chocolate.
Yeah, the Chancla show.
But I also like Matthew
Reinhauer.
Reinhauer. Yeah.
So,
right.
and then we're coming back on January 1st. At least I know we are. And we're gonna, and then maybe we can talk about the shows of 2019, which are 52, and who won the most viewers. I think Stony Rushing is like 8,000 now. So that is actually, Matthew's got the most after Coffee and Pan Dulce videos, like 7,200. But the actual watching the show, of those 8,000, I think 3,000 have actually watched the entire show.
Yeah. So Stony was a bit.
I think Stony. There's not even a competition. We already know Stony won.
Stony was pretty
Does he know?
amazing. He's a really good guy.
I don't think
glad
so.
he showed up. Hope he can show up again in 2020 because he's boss hog.
And he's doing some really good things in Union County about their water bills and stuff. All right, we digressed as usual.
Yeah.
So welcome. I want to thank everyone who's watching us live on Facebook, but also those who watch us later on YouTube and Facebook as well. Most people watch us later on. Please share us. Post any comments you'd like. Mama Ruth is watching the comments here. So we're going to start, as we normally do, by going around. We'll start from our right. Tell us who you are very briefly, because we got a full house. Who you are. If you had a button, what your cause is, so we can start sharing it. So we'll start to our right, because you're always right.
Yes, of course, Jenny-Jaymes Gunn. I represent the National Organization of Women. I'm also on the Tira Long campaign. I have buttons for both. I am a transgender activist and LGBT activist in North Carolina and Texas, and I will give it up to Grandma Ruth.
Thank you.
Good morning. Hey, Philip. Thank you for being our real committed viewer every week from Texas.
Yes, that's right.
Good morning. My name is Ruth Perez. As everyone knows, I'm a community advocate for the around the world. I can't just say for Charlotte. My buns today is, of course, y'all know me, gun sense, please. I do support Tara Long. Can't wait to see her getting that seat.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking future. I'm already like kind of ahead. I want to see Cano again running soon. So these are my 3 special buttons, that I keep right close to. My heart is over here, but it's like in the level.
Run, Christian, run.
Did
Run,
you put
Christian,
her
run.
up to that?
I did
No, I did talk about
It's a shameless plugging.
That's
oh my
right.
God.
No,
We're gonna get.
not at all.
Well, this show
The
is based on
FEC
being
is gonna
shameless.
crack down.
I bet if he tells me to wear it, I would not wear it.
I am. Jefe.
That's how rebellious we are.
I am Jefe Maxima el hombre del pueblo, the man about town.
That's right.
And I am the token Californian here today. I am surrounded by Texans. Send help. If you can't send help, send more Californians.
You throw me off when you say it in Spanish. I'm used to lip syncing. And
You gotta learn how to lip sync that.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Del pueblo.
And hand it off to another Texan here.
We have a special guest.
We have a special guest.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm Jacob Hornberger. I'm founder and president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, a nonprofit educational foundation that promotes libertarianism. And I'm also a 2020 candidate for the Libertarian Party presidential nomination.
Can you repeat that again? I need our audience to hear that.
Yeah, I'm seeking the presidential nomination for the Libertarian Party, and I should emphasize that FFF, my foundation, does not endorse my candidacy.
I feel terrible.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Not gonna do it.
Now I'm getting delusions of grandeur.
That's
worry.
what we're here for.
Don't worry, we'll shatter them in a few minutes. we have a standard and we slide under it every single time.
Okay, but I got to point out that I feel right at home because I grew up in Laredo, Texas. And on a farm on the Rio Grande, where I confess we hired lots of illegal immigrants, hardest working people I've ever seen. And for breakfast every morning,
Chorizo con huevo.
chorizo con huevo, huevos rancheros,
Yay!
and pan dulce.
And tortillas de harina.
Oh, yeah, so I see the pan dulce, but where are the chorizo con huevo? Where are my tortillas de harina?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I think he shamed us.
I miss that in Mexico
I
and
can
in
whip
Texas.
some up real quickly, but then I won't be able
No,
to.
you will not be able to roll them out. That's for
Well,
sure.
after he wins the primary, he'll come back
We'll
and
be
we'll have
happy.
a full
Yes, we'll have
table.
machacado, we'll have chorizo con huevo, huevo ranchero, bean and cheese tacos, and carne guisada. Yes.
And
Be a food party.
A little bit of mole too, please.
Yes.
wow, I'm impressed. I'm like on a tear. Well, welcome, sir. It's great to have you.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Neighbor,
I'm Barbara Bacon, and I'm a healthcare advocate here in South Charlotte.
excellent. Well,
Also
awesome.
on Tara Long's campaign as well.
Yes.
excellent.
My button's on my purse. I forgot it.
Oh, that's fine. I'm Christian Cano once again, and my buttons are two. I have the need to impeach, in case you don't know that's going on, and I have the Be Smart Monism in Action. Similar to Ruth, this is a very important and dear to our hearts here in Charlotte as we reach 103 murders, I believe, which is.
Just found another one yesterday, the business owner.
That's right, the business owner. We are going to salute to Coffee and Pan Dulce. Then right after we do that, and help yourself to Pan Dulce, Manolo, our sponsor, Manolo's Bakery in Central Avenue. Please, those who do not have their order in for Christmas or the holidays, whatever you celebrate, Festivus, all that kind of stuff, put your orders in now.
Thank you, Manolo.
Yeah, so,
Thank you,
Manolo's
Manolo.
Bakery
This is. I'm going to
Help
steal my
yourself.
favorite. I'm not even going to let the guests.
I put that there next to you on purpose. Yeah,
I
just to let
knew
you know.
that. I was
Barbara,
like,
Barbara, we got the pig for Barbara.
Thank you.
And no one
Oh,
understands what
Miss
that
Bacon.
means.
the
Barbara's
pig.
last name is Bacon. And we also have Mexican canola for Mr. Hornberger.
Thank you.
And so please do whatever you'd like to
and you got your bagels, so don't worry
So,
about us.
let's-
You need your-
I'll take
yes,
my
if
pick.
anyone
Got it?
want to grab them, and then we will salute Coffee and Pan Dulce, and I will tell you how that started.
Okay.
So this is going to be like a history.
An origin story.
Yes,
What are we
exactly.
I'm thrilled.
What am I getting?
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know.
So
This is called
We're
dead
having a
bread.
conversation outside of y'all's
You are.
conversation.
This is called a dead bread. They usually eat it on the 6th of January.
oh,
No
And they
way.
find a little monito inside, a little
so it's
doll.
like a king's cake.
Like a
Oh,
king's
how
cake.
cool.
Yeah. Which actually Manolo is one of
That's
the top
beautiful,
sellers
by the way.
of
Yes.
Mardi Gras cakes. I don't know if anybody knows that.
Really?
Yes.
I
Yeah,
didn't know
that's
that.
leche cakes, Mardi Gras cakes.
Yes.
People go like crazy.
And
to
so is the
Manolo's.
king's cake.
Exactly.
King's.
How cool is that?
So welcome. I'm going to have these wonderful pastries called bagels.
From Harris Theaters.
Paris Theater in Publix are those who are from Texas. HEBs. HEBs. That's wrong.
How boring is that?
I know.
HEB,
I don't wanna get
Kroger.
That's Kroger, Piggly Wiggles.
Piggly
All right.
Wiggly.
So let's go ahead and salute to Coffee and Pan Dulce. Everybody, salute. Welcome.
No tequila today, right?
Who
No
brought it?
tequila.
Wow.
I don't
Speak for yourself.
I noticed your
I have a little Irish Mexican
What
coffee
is,
going on here.
Wait a second. We've got an interesting mug here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tell us about your mug.
Okay, my mug is Elvis Presley.
Ah.
Okay,
The
and
king.
the king, and a man who I met when
Wow.
when I was in junior high school. I met Elvis Presley.
Wow.
It was a high point in my life, and it's all been
It's been
down.
downhill since then.
Wow, that's incredible.
Awesome.
That's amazing. I have met.
Selena.
I did meet Selena.
I did meet Selena.
I met Selena.
She actually played in back of my yard in the park, Rodeo Park.
1,000 points of light.
And
I'm
did you
not
know
going
that
anywhere.
that's
No
his-
new
That's
taxes.
his
Yeah.
idol.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
this is
yeah.
like-
I
oh,
got
wow.
That's crazy.
Your shirt?
Yes.
Yeah.
She always goes with that shirt
No,
on.
no, no, no.
He's a big Elvis fan.
Yeah.
So, for those, we're gonna talk about your campaign and what's going on and just the incredibleness of running for president, which is I think,
Daunting.
Yes, that's.
Very good word.
Thank you for doing that, first of all, and thank you for everyone who decides to run for office. As you look behind us, there are pictures of people who have been on our shows, elected officials, candidates. I think we have had pretty much. We try to be as diverse as we can.
I love
But
the chocolate
this is
one.
actually our very
That's our
first
favorite
show.
show.
This picture
That
here,
is.
you can't see it. Those who are watching us.
Yeah.
But that's our very first show, and it was a white tablecloth, which I don't know why I did that, but it was white tablecloth. But let me show you how bootleg this first show was. All right, which we're still bootleg, but this is even more bootleg.
This is a wastebasket that's upside down on a TV tray.
Mhm.
Okay.
That is one of those sucker things that goes on your window to keep your cell phone
Yeah.
connected.
Mountain.
The cell phone is on there, and we're broadcasting live. Someone took a picture, and Jeff is actually the one who started our salute to Coffee and Pan Dulce. Just by accident, Jeff went like this, and that's how we started saluting to Coffee and Pan Dulce. So every show we do that, and that is someone actually captured it. But I just thought this was really funny because I think after the show it popped off, and luckily we were off the air.
Yes.
But it was really. So these are pictures that we've had,
And y'all can go on our Coffee and
Yes.
Pan Dulce.
You can see all of our
page
shows,
and
all
see all
52
our
shows
pictures,
on
crazy
YouTube
stuff. Yeah.
and so forth. So that's how it all started. So let's start talking about, wow, running for president of the United States. That is incredible. So can you tell us why you decided to run, or Jeff, you want to take over?
Well,
this?
well, let me say. So Jacob is running in the primary, and he's running in North Carolina because he's living up in Virginia. He's close by. North Carolina is very important. So today is a big day for him because we're on this show later this afternoon. We're on this show, which is a diverse group of people. Liberals and progressives and largely people on the left. No Republicans usually show up here, except for Stoney and Matt, right? And then
Remember we had our neighbor.
and that's
Bud.
right, that's right. So later this afternoon, he's going to be talking to Mark Thomas at WBT,
Okay.
and WBT is a Republican station. So
Mhm.
it-
Ah, we
it-
beat
it's
y'all.
it's a Mark Thomas is a tough interviewer, but he's he's a good guy. And then later tonight we're going to be at Sweet Union Brewing, and we're going to have a large meeting there with a lot of libertarians in the area, and that's when the fighting really begins.
Thanks for the warning.
So that's where you really
Now you
get
got all
knocked
day
in.
That's the
No,
biggest
okay,
challenge union time.
No one fights like
Yeah.
libertarians. Anyway, so Jacob
Interesting. Four
Hornberger,
hats on.
thank you
I didn't
so
know.
much for coming here today. It's great that you could make the trip down, and we're going to do as much as we can for you during this primary campaign to make sure that people hear your message.
Well, thank you. It's just an honor and a lot of fun to be here with you guys. And thank you for
We're pretty
inviting me to
serious
be a guest. I've been fighting for liberty and libertarianism for 30 years at the Future Freedom Foundation. And I just decided at this point in my life, I want to throw myself more into the battle against people who have destroyed our freedom. And that's Democrats and Republicans. And the best way to do that directly is to get into the race against them. So I'm hoping I'm accorded the honor in May of receiving the Libertarian Party nomination, because there's nothing I would love more than to take our libertarian principles against people like Trump and Warren or Biden or whoever they select, who have really destroyed our freedom. I mean, they've brought us a system that has brought lots of death and suffering and a police state to our land. And the best example of this is immigration. And so, yes, the Libertarians are in the primary here in North Carolina. We're going to be participating in the Super Tuesday primary, March 3rd. People will have the option of voting in the Democratic Party primary, the Republican Party primary, or the Libertarian Party primary. But you have to be an independent voter to vote in our primary.
Woohoo!
You can
I
be
love it.
independent
That's
voter.
me.
That's us.
You don't have to be.
Well, in order to vote in our primary, you need to be independent
You
or
have to.
Libertarian.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, if you're registered as a Democrat or Republican, you can't come and vote for me.
Yep.
So I'm waging a very active campaign in North Carolina. I mean, this is practically my home for the last 5 weeks. I've been out campaigning, talking to people, saying, come to vote for us in our primary. Help me win my party's primary, and help me win the party's nomination by doing that. And one of these is immigrants. That North Carolina has a very large immigrant population, and there is no doubt that a large portion of Hispanics are suffering here. I mean, imagine living a life of constant fear, where you're afraid that the immigration service is going to bust you or bust your wife or your spouse and just immediately deport you. And having to sneak across the border. There's a horrible photograph of the father with his 2-year-old daughter that just drowned on the banks of the Rio Grande. And I grew up with this system. It's a system of death and suffering and fear. And we Libertarians have a solution for it. And that's open borders, free trade, open immigration. It's the only thing that works.
When you say we Libertarian have the solution, why should Latinos, why should immigrants, that are legalized already, vote for Libertarian? What's the key, or what's the most shining star that will lead them to freedom by voting for you?
Justice, morality, dignity, the freedom to cross a border like a human being instead of swimming across a river and dying with your little two-year-old daughter. I mean, our system is based on justice, on dignity, on morality. That's a system of open borders. Just the freedom to cross the border peacefully. You can retain your citizenship. You don't have to become an American citizen. If you want to, you can apply for it. But you remain a Mexican or a Guatemalan. You travel, you tour, you invest, you work, you return to your home country. There's this natural flow that is created with that kind of a system.
But don't you think that's going to open up also a door against crime, against that freedom that we're talking about? A lot of these immigrants are fleeing from their own country because of fear, crime scenes, and cartels, drugs, and all that. If we are talking about an open border, that's going to give them liberty to everyone, and we're going to be become USA will probably become
the so-called bad.
Yes. So
people.
Who's gonna keep us safe? Also, I mean, I would love to have open doors to visitors and stuff, but also I want to make sure that we are safe as well.
But I want to address that real quick. That's a myth, okay? I mean, and that's a fear tactic that predominantly Republicans have used.
Okay.
And Democrats have remained silent.
And Democrats have been a co-conspirator and ducking their heads.
Obama was the reporter-in-chief.
The truth is that there is no more criminality as a percentage of the population in the immigrant or migrant worker community than there is in the American community. So the percentage is almost exactly the same. It's not like there's migrants coming over with machine guns and stuff like that. They don't have the money for machine guns. They don't have the money.
Yeah, of course.
They're coming over to work, predominantly do the jobs that we as Americans that we've been cush and we're first world. So that is a myth. I do want to dispel that because continuing that.
But not the cartels.
Can I say one
The
more?
cartels aren't coming over the border.
Let me say one more thing
They're
before
private
we
planes.
hand it back over to Jacob, which is North Carolina is particularly bad at these fear-mongering tactics. So when you think of the latest Tillis bill, co-sponsored, I think, by both Bud and by Bishop, they are trying to get they're trying to give the DHS more power. Dan Bishop, the guy I ran against last year, is on the Homeland Security committee rather than the banking committee.
Yeah.
And he wants to give the DHS power to incentivize, really to indemnify, that is protect sheriffs who don't want to do 287G, protect them from legal consequences of basically violating the Fourth Amendment.
Sure.
Right. So with that in mind, we're in a state that has been sort of pushed into a frenzy by several of these Republicans.
Yeah, I mean that was a big issue for our sheriff's
that's
election.
Right. We have a
287G.
we have a very strong
because people were against 287G.
That's right. Yeah. So Gary McFadden is here in office because people reject 287G, and there's 5 other sheriffs throughout the state who have also done this, mostly in the metropolitan areas. So the state is really quite torn apart on this. Some of us support McFadden and support. We talked about him on the show many times. Go Gary McFadden.
Yeah.
You know, he's great. He's holding up.
Sure is.
He's holding up to the law. And I heard a Republican judge at Driggs's meeting tell a group of Republicans that Gary McFadden is right on this issue. And so they're figuring that they're working with the DHS, Dan Bishop working with the DHS, is trying to figure out a way to protect him and continue to undermine the Fourth Amendment. Okay, so anyway, that's just by way of background about what's going on.
So what you're saying is probably one of the top 3 issues that people talk about here in Charlotte and North Carolina. The 287G issue, which the majority of people are against. All the major metropolitan areas, the sheriffs have voted. We voted people in who will not participate in the ICE raids and the ICE programs. And that has, if you're not familiar, the immigrant 287G issue is the new gay issue here in North Carolina. Used to be marriage equality, then it was the bathroom bill. Now it's talking about how terrible these immigrants are, and they're bringing drugs, sex, and rock and roll. I don't know what the term is already. So that's a really big issue.
Drug,
here.
sex, and marijuana.
So if you're a Republican, you run. They're trying to make you a sanctuary city. This.
Yeah.
If you're a Democrat, you run. That's not true. This. But they don't defend. And that's what we have as a Democrat. With that tweet, I made the comment. If the Democrats would just show some courage by standing up and saying, we stand for the rule of law, the Constitution, people's ability, the Constitution protects everyone who's on American soil.
Correct.
We support that, but we don't do that aggressively. And to the Libertarians' credit, which is what I'm excited to have you here, many of our LatinX voters, have not heard that strong courage from Democrats. We've heard it briefly from maybe
there's a few progressives and there's a few groups, ACLU.
But the people who have been standing with the immigrant population and the Latinx community the most has been the Libertarian Party.
Correct.
They are standing side by side in Supreme Court and so forth with the ACLU. They are tweeting all the time about issues. If you are online, Libertarians for Immigrants or the Cano Institute does these reports. So I applaud the Libertarian Party for being one of the few parties that have actually stood up for.
So I want to ask Jacob a question.
Well, he's already got a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, so let's let him answer then. We're talking the whole time. I want to hear
now
him
that
talk.
we've all answered, what's your answer?
Hey, we'll answer for you.
Well, the immigration issue is controversial even within the libertarian movement because there's been a lot of Republicans that have come into our movement and they've carried some of their baggage with them, and some of that baggage is the system of immigration controls. Well, we've had this system for 70, 80, 90 years, and it just hasn't worked. I mean, it's produced death, suffering. You've got a massive police state in the Southwest. Anybody that is on the border knows that. You've got highway checkpoints that stop cars that have never gone into Mexico. You've got searches of ranches and farms without search warrants, roving border patrol checkpoints. It's a police state. It's like a totalitarian system. Well, the founding of America was a totally different system. We had open immigration for over 100 years. People were free to come into the United States. Was there prejudice against people? Yeah. People talked about the Irish and the Italians, but still, Americans said this is our system of open immigration.
Correct.
Then it changed. Now, You bring up a very good point about the drug cartels and the drug gangs and so forth. That reaches into another libertarian position that's totally opposite from Democrats and Republicans. We oppose this war, the war on drugs. Totally. It's a failed war. It's destructive. Much of my campaign here in North Carolina is among African Americans because it is the most racially bigoted government program since segregation.
Yes.
We want to legalize all drugs, not because, as they often accuse us, oh, we favor drugs, which is a ridiculous accusation, but because drug addiction, drug use belongs in the private sector with therapy and Alcoholics Anonymous, counseling groups. Okay, what happens if you legalize drugs and you take it out of the criminal justice area? All the drug cartels, the drug gangs, the drug lords, they go out of business immediately. They can't compete in a legitimate market. We saw this when alcohol was legalized.
The bootleggers.
The bootleggers. They went out of business. They couldn't compete against Jack Daniels.
Sorry, NASCAR.
Budweiser.
Well, we got NASCAR out of it. You know, it was a good trade.
And we got telenovelas out of the drug cartel. Okay.
So you get rid of all the violence associated with the drug war. Like 200,000 people in Mexico killed in the last 8 or 9 years, not because of drugs, because of drug war.
Competition,
So you get rid of all that. Then immigration flows become more natural. Also get rid of all the coups and the interventions that the military and the CIA do in Latin America that creates this chaos.
Absolutely.
Then everything starts moving normally instead of these mass immigration, the exoduses that are rooted in what the U.S. government is doing in that part of it.
Correct.
So what do you say to those who are, I call them deep flakes. So instead of snowflakes, they're deep flakes because they believe in the
What's a deep flake? I wonder what
a deep flake is a person who believes in these conspiracies. And
oh, okay.
I give you,
the government
you give
is
me, and what I teach
they're
for
taking
that.
our jobs.
Yes.
You know this. What do you say to that person in Union County who says?
Easy now.
Stop!
I've actually had a person who voted for me in 2016 said, when I ran in 2018, said the reason they were not voting for me, they were voting for Dan McCready, was because of my ridiculous stance on immigration and supporting those people that are taking our jobs. I didn't say this to their face, but I don't want to say, if your job is so crappy that an illegal person can travel 100 miles in the desert, come over here illegally, hide for and have to work, and they took your job and you've been here your whole life and you lost your job to them, then you deserve to lose your job.
Can I say one thing though?
Yes.
I have a
Just one.
Just one.
shut up.
Read the sign. Read the sign.
Keep it short.
Look who's talking.
That sounds like a hot joke. I'm not gonna do it. 1,000 points of lie.
1,000 points.
So go ahead, Jeff.
I'm gonna stop at the 38th parallel. My biggest problem is the language we're using. So no human's illegal.
Exactly.
So please stop using that.
Undocumented.
They're undocumented migrants. Our neighbors, but please don't use the word illegal. No human's illegal.
But I think, Jenny, I think a lot of the, sorry to interrupt you, but I know a lot of the people like Dan Bishop and those individuals, they use illegal aliens knowing that it's offensive. They use it because they know they want to get someone's goat, and their supporters like the fact that we're not being politically correct by saying that. And that's how they get away with it, because logically, they continue to use illegal aliens even today, even though we know that no human's illegal and they're supposed to be people of faith. But they do it because it is the N-word that has not been banned yet.
Yeah.
But all the more reason why we shouldn't repeat that myth on the show.
Yeah, and
I have a problem with that verbiage because
Did we say that?
yeah, you said it, and you said the word illegals and describing the migrants, and so they are migrants. They're traditionally migrants.
Then I apologize. I didn't
Well,
No,
he was using air quotes when he said
and one of the reasons is that if you keep repeating it, it becomes a truth. It becomes the norm.
There's a conspiracy going on.
And I truly believe, and I'm calling you out for a reason because I know you understand where I'm going with this, is that when you repeat that deal, you establish that they are illegal.
Yeah, I didn't mean to say that.
And I'm glad you did, because we as human beings, we are what we hear. The perception is reality.
Sure.
And we have to change our verbiage. We have to do harm reduction, like our guest from a few weeks ago. is using language and is you're campaigning on, which is reducing harm of our society, our institutional harm institutions like our police state.
Sure.
We have a prohibition problem that you've identified and all those things. The barrier to citizenship and or the ability to have a free-flowing economy, which hurts us.
So Jenny, to your
Migrants
point,
help our economy.
so to your point, and I apologize if I
No,
never
go for
really
it.
used that word at all, but
Yeah.
if I did,
I
apologize. So what do you say to that person who says those undocumented people, they're taking our jobs?
Well, there's some truth to it, but as you point out, they take the lower echelon jobs traditionally. They have a poor education, maybe an 8th grade education. So they come in and let's say they start picking crops. They displace an American worker. But at the same time, they need housing, they need a used car, they need to buy clothes for their children.
Yep.
That produces demand in other sectors where the previously displaced American who's got the high school education now moves up into those sectors because they're looking for people to hire to satisfy this new demand. So you've got prosperity for everyone. The person who's displaced ends up in a higher paying job where it provides him more satisfaction.
Provided they have.
I've never heard that explained that way before.
Yeah.
Well,
That makes sense.
that's just
Way
sort of
too
the
logical.
natural economics in the sense that more people that participate in
Sure.
the market and find what they're good at are going to lead to general prosperity.
That's right. That's the division of labor.
Sure.
And this is one of the major contributors. When you look at the founding of the country all the way to the early 1900s, it's a huge increase in the standard of living. Well, now there were other factors. There was no income taxation, no welfare state, no Social Security, no Medicare, no military-industrial complex, no CIA, no drug war, and open immigration. Penniless people were flooding into America to participate in this program and contributing to the prosperity that was taking place. So people say, oh, it's a burden, Jacob, it's a burden, all these people coming in. On the contrary, that division of labor that you're talking about, Jeff, contributes to higher standards of living.
And
So-
you do
so
need human capital. I mean, Canada, for example, in 2019 is lowered some of their standards of because they have a point system, and they they're encouraging because they want to recruit 330,000 new Canadians to add to their normal flow of migration here. Because they have a labor shortage.
Sure.
And on the lower end skill sets, the manufacturing, the things that are the basic jobs that modern Canadians don't want to do. And so, and an aging population, which we also have a problem with an aging population here with the top end of the baby boomers now retiring and not doing those jobs. And I think migrant workers would be the logical solution to that.
Well, you see the perversion. It's a system of central planning. That's what immigration controls are, which is a socialist principle. You've got government officials managing what number of people from each country, how many total immigrants. Socialism always produces crises and perversions. So you've got this huge number of people at the border, backlog, that want to come in and work. You've got crops here that are rotting in the fields. Farmers that don't have enough people to pick their crops. That's what central planning does. You open up the borders, and all of a sudden now you got your free market working. And immigrants say, where's the place to get a job? Well, they just look at the prices. How much are they paying in Montana? How much are they paying here? And that's where they go. That's how the free market works. It's a very harmonious system as compared to the system that involves police and guards and border inspections, and they really destroy our freedom.
Yes.
Just following up on what Chris said, a lot of Americans are nervous about this. They're nervous about their security. They're nervous about their jobs. But what we see coming out of the DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, is threat inflation, right? We see them talking about the gangs, talking about local sheriffs who are releasing murderers and pedophiles into the community. And so there seems to be a constant stream of fear emanating from this particular department. And I know you've written about the terror wars and the growth of the national security state. So could you talk a little bit about this whole idea of threat inflation and why Americans appear to be just more anxious right now than at any time in my living experience. People are just scared, they're wigged out, they're very anxious, and I mean, I've got my own answer to that, but I'd love to hear your comments, because you've done a lot on this topic, and you've had some important, FFF in particular had some important seminars on the national security state.
Yeah, I mean, it's ironic. We have the most powerful government in history and the most frightened people in the world. I mean, it's just ironic.
I'm trying to write all these quotes down because those are if you're running for office, these are great.
We'll pick these out later.
Yes,
Yeah.
immigration restriction is true socialism.
Yep.
I'm paraphrasing what you said.
Absolutely.
We've got the most powerful government in it, but yet we've got the most afraid people in the world. These are great. So running for office. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So our government starts as a limited government republic. That was our founding governmental system under the Constitution. After World War II, it's converted to a totalitarian structure called a national security state. So you all know about national security. It's the two most important words in our lifetime in the American political lexicon. It means nothing. Nobody's ever defined what it means. But it's an excuse for them to exercise power. The Pentagon, the CIA, the NSA, this is the excuse they use. That it was the Soviets, the communists were coming against us.
Yeah,
Red
right.
Scare.
Yeah.
I remember growing up.
She's gonna be.
Okay, and then there's after the Cold War ends, the terrorists. Well, they go into the Middle East, they start killing people. So not naturally, there's terrorist blowback. Oh, they hate us for our freedom and values, but the terrorists are coming to get us. The Muslims are coming to get us. The drug dealers are coming to get us. The immigrants are coming to get us. Fear is the coin of the realm of this type of system. They need official enemies, because if all of a sudden people lose their fear of all these boogeymen, what do we need a big military industrial complex for? What do we need a CIA? What do we need an NSA? What do we need a Homeland Security for? So they not only engender, they produce the threats with their foreign interventionism, but they also fill us with fear so we can say, please protect us, take away our freedoms. We're willing to trade our liberty, just keep us safe.
Mr. Hornberger, as you're speaking, and I'm gonna let you say this. What you say, and we've said this to many people who've been here, who hold office or who are running for office. What you say makes logical sense. The problem with that is, if you're a deep flake Trump supporter, no matter what you say, it's not going to convince him. If you are, I hate Trump, suffer from Trump derangement syndrome.
Call it fatigue.
Voting for you is a vote for Trump. That's the thinking at this moment. All of the other people the millennials who that makes sense to them, millennials are a generation, my Generation X and baby boomers like quick answers. Generation X people, millennials love for you to explain things to them. They don't want you to consider them dumb. Mm-hmm. That's why they're so different. That's why baby boomers and Gen X people are afraid of millennials, because they roll your eyes when you do baloney to them. And so what you're saying is something that I think would appeal directly to them, because they love people that take their parents have babied them by going, honey, this. No, tell me why. No, just because I said so. They want people to explain things to them. Yeah. So I love the fact that you're taking the time to explain it, because we miss that in politics. At least as a Democrat, I don't get that. So I'm sorry. So you want to say something?
Well, I was just going to say that the mechanism for creating fear is something that people are becoming aware of. If they're watching the mainstream news and they're turned off by what's going on at CNN and MSNBC, and they're looking for independent media
And Fox.
and
Fox.
and Fox, yeah, and Fox,
Especially Fox.
Yeah, come on.
But it seems to me that I look at the DHS as sort of the center of a lot of these domestic fears, whether it's these sex trafficking panics, or these drug cartel panics, or these voting interference panics, or the immigrant gang panics. They're all paying contractors and companies to go out and spread this information, and they've got politicians in their pocket who sit on the committees that help induce this kind of fear and anxiety. So we've got politicians in North Carolina whose job it is to perpetuate this kind of fear.
Oh, it's an industry.
Yeah.
It's a fear industry.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a huge defense contractors and subcontractors that they thrive on this fear mentality. Keep people afraid. Because when people are afraid, then they're more willing to say, take my liberty away from me. Do whatever you think is necessary to keep me safe.
In many, like I can speak from example in my family, who's huge family. If you see how many family members I have, about 4 of my uncles work for Lockheed Martin and Bell Helicopter, and they're about to retire, and the whole. So I can understand why their kids are pro defense and pro this is because that's how they went to college.
Well, let's not
So
go
it's hard.
that far. On our way over, on my way over here, I was listening to the Spanish radio station, and we have a
Did you
police
understand?
officer. I kind of understood
Okay.
it. We have a police officer that always and let me be clear, he says he sympathizes with our Latinos in trying to help them. But the attorney, the immigration attorney, was making sure what's going on with all this visa U and why they're not signing, especially CMPD are not signing some of those victims' petitions. And the attorney went with the CMPD manual, police department, 2019 manual, and the rules and regulations and stuff. Well, officer, I can't remember his name right now. I can't stand him anyways. I don't. And I was about to post, let's vote him out. He didn't want to say that he is in charge. He's the chief of the petitions for Visa U for immigrants through the Department of CMPD.
Oh.
But he was making all these excuses saying, well, I got to treat everyone the same. You know, black, white, Americans, Latinos. And I'm like, okay, you're over here saying that you're trying to help people, but I've noticed and I've seen many cases where you as a Latino will kind of throw them under the bus instead of helping them out.
Well,
That's how our system is right now.
Some of the most adamant anti-immigration,
Are
anti-undocumented
Latinos.
people are Latinx
Yes.
people. People who have come here
Yep.
before it got tougher.
Yep.
Like like most of my family, they've been here for
They make it
4 or 5
hard on
generations.
you.
But my grandfather is a naturalized citizen through the Reagan administration. And so people from like my grandfather who were nationalized citizens from the Reagan years, they're the most anti-immigrant because they don't want anybody else.
Yeah, we've
to
had
come here.
we've
Yeah,
had
they got
this discussion
legalized,
before.
yeah.
The Latin community is as diverse as any other
Yes.
community.
Correct.
I mean, there's right wing, left wing communists. There's some
Yes.
libertarians. There's liberals, right? Coming out of Guatemala for Francisco Marroquín University,
Yeah.
and so on. So it's not a surprise to find
But
that.
it's very shameful because, I mean, we're talking about a radio station hiring him because he's there every week
Yeah.
trying to tell the community, you know,
Sure.
what to do and stuff. But at the same time, he can't sign a petition for a Visa U just because that person didn't do the right description of the whoever was committing the crime.
We're going to
Stuff
go
like
over
that.
this segment just a couple of minutes. Anything else you want to tell us about your run for presidency? I know thank you for saying that you decided to run. Are there any other candidates, libertarian candidates, that are running as well, or do we know yet?
Yeah, so
okay.
I checked the roster just the other day, and I think there's 16 that are going to be and just like the Democrats,
Different states?
yeah, some of them are more serious than others. Like even on the Democrat side, if you look at the North Carolina State Board of Elections site, you'll see that there are 16. You know, people like Tom Steyer are still on it,
Sure.
but they're sort of probably not going to continue. But so of the serious candidates, I think there's probably 10. You know, there's some.
Will y'all have a debate or
I'm not.
anything, or-
Yeah, there's already been a
Okay.
debate in South Carolina.
Oh,
But I'll let Jacob talk about that because he probably knows more about the future.
Yeah,
Schedule.
we nominate by convention,
Okay.
and so the North Carolina primary is not binding, but I'm using it as to give me some headwind if I can win
Sure.
here. It helps me get into the national convention in May, but starting in January, we will be traveling practically every weekend to state conventions.
Wow.
And at some of those state conventions, there will be presidential debates, and some of them will be on C-SPAN
Sure.
and things like that.
excellent. Great. Well, and I do think that, I know it's hard for those who are in the silos right now. You're either, like I said, you're either a Trump person or you hate Trump. And the Democratic Party, as we know from our elections, says, I know, I'm watching what he's posting, always tell us, and maybe Jeff has answered this before, why should we vote for a third-party person? Isn't that just a wasted vote, and that's just going to get someone else elected?
Yeah, that's a fascinating question. I mean, we're dealing with two issues, though. We're dealing with the primary,
Sure,
and then the general
Excellent.
election.
Okay.
Yes.
And so I'm asking people, including Latinos,
Sure.
African Americans, I'm saying elevate these positions to your top priority positions. The immigration position and what they're doing to immigrants. The African Americans, what the drug war is doing to African Americans, especially the poorest African Americans. Elevate these issues to your top priorities, even though you may disagree with us libertarians on other issues. Send a message to these Democrats and Republicans by coming and voting in our primary. Because one thing Democrats and Republicans understand is votes.
Yes.
And so your vote, you go and vote in the Democratic or Republican primary, your vote doesn't matter at all because you're voting with 1.5 million people. You come and vote in our primary, your vote's counting because they're going to pay attention to that. And if I pull enough votes, all of a sudden Democrats and Republicans get nervous. Oh my gosh, the Libertarians are getting a lot of votes here because of the drug war issue, because of the immigration issue. We need to adjust our positions because they're chameleons. If the environment changes, they will change their positions.
I don't know if you know, but Jeff had the same problem in 2018. He actually cost a person from being elected into Congress, didn't you, Jeff? You were the reason.
Shucks.
Aw.
So, and what we've said
That
was
embarrassed.
Jeff spoke about issues that weren't being talked about by the Republican and the Democrat. He spoke on issues that they completely ignored, and he got about 5,000 votes, and the election was determined by 900 people.
That's right. Let me give one example of this. So I went to a lot of Democratic groups, and one of the within 60 seconds of standing up and talking, I said, "How many people know that we are in a war in Afghanistan?" And most people raised their hand. How many people think we should stay in Afghanistan? Then everybody dropped their hands. And I said, I'm going to give you one more chance to raise your hand. How many people think we should stay in Afghanistan? So everybody was able to see that no one was raising their hand. As a very powerful moment. And here we are, and this big expose has come out. And what's going to happen? Are we actually going to finally stop the war in Afghanistan? You know, 2/3 of the American public, 2/3 of veterans understand that we shouldn't be there, that it's been a total waste. And now it's being told to us by the mainstream press that it's just been a series of fiascos and lies and
there was a report out in
expenditures.
the
That's right, in the Washington
Journal,
Post by the I think it's the Inspector General of the Department of Defense, if I'm not.
Trillions.
Yeah.
Trillions.
So it's all now on the public record what a horrible waste it was. Now, are Democrats and Republicans going to open their eyes? Because Harris was the one he nominally won by 900 votes. He was the one time I was up against him and it came to the topic of Afghanistan, he repeated his talking points, which is that, I heard from some parents whose children are, fighting there in the war and, they got a flat tire and they had to wait for a couple of days, and we just need to support our people in the field with all of the right equipment, and we need to make sure we've got our logistics out there. It's like, did it ever occur to you that maybe they shouldn't be out there in the first place?
Right. Well, your case is a classic example of where you cost somebody the election. They say that you stole our votes from us.
Yeah.
Well, okay. My response, I love it when I see a Republican get angry. You caused us to lose the election.
And Democrats say that too.
Well, then change your positions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
And that's why it's so powerful if people come and vote for us. Your vote counts more by voting for us because you're causing these Democrats and Republicans to get upset.
Exactly.
And then they come over and adopt.
We talk about this with Hillary, for an example. I don't know why Hillary is so upset that she didn't get elected. She didn't go out for the votes that she could have gone after. It's her fault.
And a really important point, and we talked about this last week, is fundamentally third-party candidates can change history.
Yes.
And I
Ross
use the
Perot?
example of
That's
Ross Perot
Yeah.
Right.
and the issues he ran on, and he got 21% of the vote, which was
Yeah.
incredible. They campaigned on very specific issues like reducing the size of the government, rearranging things.
That giant
And
sucking sound.
And yeah, and Lady Harvey was amazing.
I'm sorry.
Um,
I'm sorry. We'll
Well,
let
what-
Barbara say that.
But one of the things that Ross Perot did was he fundamentally changed presidential politics
Yes.
and congressional politics too, because you look at the contract of America, the Republicans kind of rebranded Ross Perot's message in a lot of ways. In the mid '90s, the good old Newt, was pushing. But a lot of it is that he altered the course of politics in America, and I think third party candidates should be aware of that.
Sure.
Is how you got to give a simple message that also can alter politics as we know it. And I think when you do that and you amplify that, it's going to help y'all win.
So I do think, because we're running over, we need to go
Right.
ahead and value everyone's time. I do think that we're going to hear that. You're going to hear it, I'm sure. We're going to hear it from people who follow us. Why do you have a libertarian on there? You need to have Democrats and Republicans, and I can't believe you're not a good Democrat. Okay, you already called me not a good Democrat. But I guess what I'm saying is,
What is a good Democrat?
there's no such thing. If you are truly concerned about voter suppression, vote shaming someone is voter suppression.
Could I just say a few words to
Sure.
your
Sure.
audience?
Yeah.
Yo sé que muchos de ustedes están aquí ilegalmente, pero nunca piensen que son criminales, porque no son criminales. Están nomás cumpliendo con las leyes de Dios, que están mejorando la vida, sobreviviendo. Los criminales son los jueces federales, la migra, ellos que están enforzando esta ley que es contra las leyes de Dios. Yo, Jacob Hornberger, estoy haciendo mi campaña para presidente de los Estados Unidos. Yo necesito ayuda. Mi principio libertario es con el Partido Libertario, que es el tercer más grande partido en el país. Nuestro principio es fronteras abiertas, que es un sistema justo donde personas pueden cruzar fronteras libremente, como seres humanos, con dignidad. Pero yo necesito ayuda. Yo sé que muchos de ustedes no pueden votar, pero también muchos de ustedes sí pueden votar. Pueden hacer llamadas, pueden mandar cartas electrónicas diciendo a personas, mira, hay un candidato con los libertarios que necesita nuestra ayuda. Con eso me pueden ayudar, pueden votar en nuestra primaria el 3 de marzo en el Partido Libertario, pero tienen que ser votantes independientes. Agradecería su ayuda, su apoyo y muchas gracias por su consideración y muchas gracias por venir a nuestro país a ayudarnos aquí en nuestro país.
Wow.
Just put a slap down on that. I don't think we've ever had a guest do that.
Oh my God.
You just threw the fear of God into every Republican and Democrat that watches this.
Yeah,
Really did.
I think we just heard a deep sucking sound out there in the politic
I'm
land.
trying.
You know what I really loved about it? The last part. He said, thank you for coming to our country to make it wealthier.
I understood that part actually. There was a few words I was like, I understand.
I have a question. You
Okay.
said March 3rd. What about can people change their...
They don't need to change their registration unless they're a Democrat or Republican.
That's what I'm saying. That was going to be my next
yes.
question.
I'm sorry.
If they
I'm
want to
sorry,
become
didn't mean to jump.
independent, they
Yeah.
can change their...
They can.
Very easy to change. You go to the clerk's office and say,
I want to make
change
sure
it.
so I can encourage
I
some
think
of
you
them.
can do it online.
Great,
Okay.
great.
Just say what you said.
I said, when he first started talking, the first thing that jumped into my head is every Democrat and Republican that watched this,
Exactly.
you just threw the fear of God into them. Because,
Yep.
yeah,
The-
well, they do fear, so
Yeah.
right back at
The-
you.
the-
You know,
the-
it's
Good.
it's about time.
We've
Because I sat through
said
all those
exactly. Barbara
campaigns.
knows. Barbara understands that the bless your heart Democrats and bless your heart Republicans, which are the old
Southern.
Southern
Yeah.
bless your heart, they put you in your place, the racist Republicans and Democrats. Their biggest fear is an educated, and aware Latinx community
Yes.
Yes.
and African American community, their biggest fear is that we will join and start voting together.
Correct.
That's their biggest fear.
And their second biggest fear is libertarians.
And they're afraid that we will go.
Libertarians
To-
sort of hooking up with
Yes.
progressives
Yes.
and deciding
And
to say
Exactly.
we're going to
Become-
focus on war
Yes.
and the military occupation of the world by this empire.
You
Exactly.
know, North Carolina has been, in this past 3-4 years, we've changed the Latinos' votes.
Mhm.
It used to be real low. Our percentage was
Mhm.
very, very like 6%. There's a group of Latinos that we have. It's called Future Search for the Latinos, and we go out on the streets and try to register voters and stuff. Our percentage went from 6% to 13 this
Mhm.
past
Wow.
voting. And we are encouraging more Latinos to also create. Of course, we can't
Mhm.
endorse
Sure.
candidates, but we
Your
love
vote,
to
yeah.
encourage
Mhm.
them and for our community to learn and be educated.
Will you
Because like
bring
you
them
just
here?
said,
Mhm.
because you just said, once you're educated, I grew up without believing in voting.
She
I'm a
did not-
living
tell
example.
tell
I
her.
started voting at the age of 40. Because
So
my
from-
family came from I think it's a communist country, I'm not sure,
Nicaragua.
Nicaragua.
Sandinistas.
So we were not allowed to speak about, no
Mm-hmm.
politicians, no political talks at all.
Sure.
Until I learned myself and the power of voting.
Mhm.
And I encourage my kids also. I have a 27, a 25th, a 21, and I'm always behind their butts. Go and vote. Make sure and register. Make sure and do it. If you're not in town, make sure to send it. Because, now I understand the importance of voting. It's your voice.
And
Well,
that is
if you go on your door knocking campaigns, you let me know and I'll be there because I would.
Awesome.
excellent. Well, listen, this is one of the many reasons that we started this show. We're going to go to our next subject. Thank you so much for joining us. One of the reasons we started this because we wanted to educate our Latinx community and our allies of the power of being educated. You may not have a lot of money. You may be a cashier at Harris Teeter or whatever your job is. You may be a school teacher, single mom, single dad, whatever, working all day long, don't have time to get involved in politics. But the one thing that makes you more powerful than even the owner of the Panthers is you have a vote.
Mhm.
That vote, regardless if you give anyone $1,000, you still only have one vote.
Yep.
And you have so much power and understand the value. If it wasn't powerful, people would not be trying to take it away.
Correct.
Exactly.
And that is, or they wouldn't try to also tell you, you're a wasted vote. Don't worry about my vote if it's not
And that's something that we do encourage in some of our undocumented people. They work for houses,
Yeah.
cleaning,
Yeah.
doing their lawn, painting and stuff, and we encourage them for them to speak out and say, hey, I'm not able to vote.
Please vote.
I don't have the documentation
Sure.
to go and vote. But please,
And you
if you
can,
want to keep
you can help a
me doing all
campaign.
this,
Yeah, I don't know about these
please
campaign.
go vote
Get
for,
started.
for our rights. And we've seen a lot of people.
So we got to
change
wrap
their
it up. You want to
Yeah.
say something, Jenny?
I just want to say that I love to hear a candidate that pushes back against the fear culture,
Exactly.
Yes.
the violence, because I think violence, the violence culture that we have, because every one of our solutions has to be violent.
Yeah.
We have to incarcerate people. We have to be tough on crime. We have to do this, and it always ends up with a violent police or militaristic solution, war on drugs. And I love hearing our politicians refreshingly say we need to end that fear culture and fear-based politics and actually have real sustainable solutions, because I think that's what we need. We need a countrywide harm reduction. And I think your solutions definitely go in line with that.
So thank you, everyone. Let's go ahead and read our constitutional quote of the week. Our guest has picked the actual one. Do we know which one it is?
Bill of Rights
Do
Amendment
you know what page
5,
that is?
right?
5, yeah.
What page? I didn't mark mine.
22.
22. Okay, go ahead.
Amendment 5, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy in life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. And the reason I chose this is primarily because of the due process clause. It is the key to a free society. That phrase goes all the way back to Magna Carta in the year 1215. And it's one of the paragons of liberty that our framers and our ancestors put in this Constitution.
Excellent.
Bravo.
Well, thank you. Well, listen, we've had such a great year. I want to thank everyone. We're running it. We're going to go. We've gone over just, and I value your time. Thank you
No,
so
we
much.
started late. We're good.
Yeah, we just started a little late. Thank you. Share this later on. Most of the people who watch us later on YouTube or on Facebook, please share us. So what we have talked about over this last year, I hope that you obviously you don't agree with all of us. We get that every time we see someone. I can't believe you had Stony Russian. I can't believe you had whatever. Listen, this is what we have to do as neighbors. We've got to get around the table, talk about issues. We don't have to agree. Thanksgiving, we had this at my family. We talked about issues. We didn't agree, but we at least rooted for the Cowboys, who suck this year. And,
Stop it! Stop it!
So, these are some of the issues we talked about.
You Texans.
We talked about the
That
La
baseball.
Every Latinx family
Yeah,
knows.
football.
We talked about La Chancla. Everyone has had the La Chancla issue. There is a person running against Lindsey
Chancla?
Graham who actually is selling fundraiser flip-flops with Lindsey Graham's face
saw
on them.
those. Oh my God.
And I want to get him on our show because he's in South Carolina, which is 30 minutes from us.
Yeah.
And I bought some of those chanclas. So when I get them,
Did you?
yes. And so I want to have those chanclas. And so I told him we call it La Chancla. And so the La Chancla, we've talked about the need to impeach, which I've been impeachment. He's completely against it. So
No. I don't have a
Oh,
dog.
you changed your mind
no.
now?
I don't have a dog in the fight.
All right. We've talked about
Whatever.
Medicare for all. I'm
Yes.
a big supporter of Medicare for all. I haven't always been, but because I believe if you save money on the front end, if we spend the money in the front end, we save it on the back end. I know you and I don't agree with that, so we don't agree all the time. We talk about trying to get BB&T and SunTrust, who are merging to stop financing guns and
Ice rates
and so forth, and we have accomplished that with Wells Fargo and Bank of America. We are one of the largest banking.
Now I can put
funding,
a fund together
And
Yes,
private
detention
credit.
center.
to invest in gun companies.
I will say
The detention center.
we were very proud. Not all of us. Jenny was supportive of the art tax, but we were very proud to openly speak against a sales tax here. And
Yes.
Matthew
Or
Ridenhour was leading. He was the David and beat that Goliath. Everyone told us, they spent over $1 million trying to get a tax. We were able to do that.
For arts.
But-
for arts.
On a personal level, I want to thank the individual
That pushed us.
that
They kind of
helped us
forced
the
us.
most. People say that I don't give this individual enough, say a lot of good things about this individual.
Credit. Let's give him a credit.
But I want to thank this individual because this individual has single-handedly gotten us together.
Yeah.
But also many people in our district as well, progressives, we've been able to speak out and not be afraid of what the establishment people in our party talk about. I want to thank Dan McCready.
Yes. Thank
He
you.
started this show.
Yeah.
We started for him because of him.
And we know he watches, and we know his supporters watch him because there was one day I lost my mind one day when somebody
Yep.
was like,
One day.
all right.
He was a Democrat
I want to
for
thank
2 years
Dan
in a row,
McCready
2018,
for spending
19,
$27 million and losing twice.
You're losing twice. That's
Losing
right.
twice. What?
Wait. Don't cry.
I hope
Sorry.
the investor class in North Carolina and South Charlotte understand that money is important, but you can spend $27 million, and if
Can
you don't
you buy
have a
a
good
boat?
message, and if you don't come after the Latinx community or the LGBT community or the the black women voters, if you don't come out of these groups that are the base of our Democratic Party, no matter how much money you spend, you're going to lose.
Yep.
And I hope we didn't learn that with John Ossoff in Georgia. We had Dan McCready who did it twice. I hope that we start supporting candidates who actually have a message. And so I want to thank him.
Not only a message,
so
not only a
Chris,
message, but
I-
also Meet
Yes.
with the
Yeah.
community.
Meet with us.
Hand
Yeah, that's
out.
right.
I think it's fine to criticize him, but I think you went a little too far when you called him Gomer Pyle with a trust fund.
I never called him that.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. I was on this show.
I didn't know it was
Yeah.
him. It was him.
You amplified it though.
Yes, he amplified it, but it was him.
I'm a Boy Scout. I cannot tell him.
No, as
And he carries that cup.
as
He
we
carries his
as we
cup.
end the show,
Read my lips. No new taxes.
as we end the show, I want to thank everyone, and I hope that you have a wonderful Festivus.
For the rest of
The
us.
official Festivus date is December 23rd, so though it's a secular holiday, Festivus is for the rest of us. I'm afraid that if yes, get your flags out. I'm afraid that if we make Festivus too popular, Trump will say there's a
Have a
wrong
fit.
Festivus.
Yeah.
And so
A fake
we
Festivus.
have
A
these
fake
flags
Festivus.
because we know how Jeff hates nationalism, but we have a presidential candidate on the show.
Yes.
I know.
We've got to. I pulled the flag. I even washed this flag because it was a little dirty. I've got like 5
Okay,
flags. in
we'll
this house.
we'll go out on Hail to the Chief. 'cause
Exactly.
That's our theme song.
As we go out, tell us where you're going to be, and thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Thank you for having me. This
Yes.
has been a blast.
All
Thanks,
right.
guys.
Alexa, play Pandora.
Tomorrow night I will be at the Real Out Committee's meeting. It's the LGBT Film Festival that is next May. But we start early because we have to select films, organize entertainers, and it runs from May 9th to May 17th. It's a lot of fun. Hope people come out and see our films next year.
Me, myself, and Mama Ruth, will be enjoying her grandkids over the weekend.
Especially that grandbaby.
So I just love my time right now.
Well, I'm going to be flying to California next week and spending the holidays with relatives in the great Golden State, which
Ooh.
is not Texas. Not anything
So
like
you're
Texas.
not going to nothing good.
But I look forward to resuming next year and resuming Wired and Tired with Jenny-Jaymes Gunn.
That's right.
We're going to set up some great shows next year, which usually follow the Pan Dulce, and we'll have some vigorous debates as the candidacies, local candidacies, state candidacies
So we hope to have them again.
get
He
established.
needs to be on Wired and Tired the next time he's in town.
That's
right.
That's
I mean,
So thank you for listening.
And I am going to the great state of Texas for Christmas. I'll be in Dallas.
Don't mess with
with
Texas.
Oh, I get to go to the land of frozen tundra. My whole family's in Illinois and they ain't moving. So I have to go there and I gotta get all my winter clothes and shove them in a suitcase.
To Tundra.
Yes.
To tundra.
good
To
luck on
tundra.
Barbara.
My turn. I will be watching the bowl games that start on December 14th. It is a plethora of bowl games. Every school who is 6-6 except one is in a bowl game. So if you're a football fan, get ready for the bowl games. All right. Anything else?
We're good. Thank you
Bye.
very much.
Bye.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Happy holidays. Happy